Greetings to all the eminent speakers who are present over here, and warm welcome to each and every one of you. So the stories for cultural change. So this session is based on a core theme of showcasing storytelling across mediums as a catalyst for societal transformation and gender equity. Art, culture, language have immense potential to transform societies and individuals. The transformation often happens in society as well as in individuals. Language, art forms, literature, festivals, and traditions are expressions of the culture and hold immense potential in creation as well as distraction civilizations. So here the eminent group of keynote speakers we have, they have utilized these possibilities of culture, media, language, art forms in transforming society. Especially storytelling has a profound ability to inspire, celebrate, educate, and transform individuals and societies. By leveraging various mediums such as film, theater, literature, and digital media, storytelling can raise awareness and empower marginalized communities, foster inclusivity, and drive social change. So let me welcome all the guests to the keynote session. And for each keynote session, speaker will be speaking for 15 minutes, followed by 5 minutes of question and answer sessions. And so let me introduce our first keynote speaker over here. So the first keynote session for today is To Virtually Dance What I Am by Dr. Methil Devika. Dr. Methil Devika, as you all know, is an Indian classical dance practitioner academic, presently doing her postdoctoral fellowship. She has over 50 original dance creations to her credit. She has worked on the Arts Integrated Advanced Science Project in Indian Institute of Space Research and Technology, a recipient of 2 national awards, 2 state awards, and an Oscar contentation. She is the first Indian to get the Australian government's permanent resident status under the Global Talent category for dance. She has several visual anthologies like Sarpatvam, Ahalya, Tripaksha, and The Crossover. The Crossover is a dance film conceived and produced by her for the deaf and is premiered at Mumbai International Film Festival and screened at Goa International Film Festival. The film also impets to start an accessibility and inclusive segment for the first time in these festivals. So what more should I say? So I would like to invite Dr. Methil Devika, the trailblazer in her field, to speak about the creation. So I invite the creator to speak about the creation. Welcome, ma'am.
Namaste to one and all my co-speakers on the dais and my dear friends. So our topic is stories of change. I think we are all in a story, and we are in a collective story. We have our own personal stories, we have our own social stories. And it is very important that we see who has taught us these stories and who have influenced us, who has handed these down to us. And if they have not served us or they have not served humanity in general, I think it is time to write our own story. And when you do that, and when you look back over the years, you will find that you've completely, you've created a new picture, and you have your own set of, readers. There may be lovers, there may be haters, but they are all going to read your story, and that's very important. Coming to my story, I would like to, me being a Mohiniyattam practitioner, let me start with the story of Mohiniyattam. The Mohini in Mohiniyattam is often taken out of context. It is often, people think that it is a dance of the enchantress, and there's a lot of sensuality and sensuousness associated with that, which is okay, which is fine, which is great. But for me as a performer, I feel it's all about illusion, that is what Mohini did. She created an illusion around her. And it was also Vishnu's guise as Mohini. So Vishnu is time, and time itself today, if you look at it, is illusion. And for me, it was this aspect of the transformation that an artist could take up while, during her performance on stage that really allured me to the art form. Post-independence, I think we were all in a struggle to revive our art forms. And Mohiniyattam was resurrected in Kerala Kalamandalam. A lot of unnecessary elements were banned. But it's still, if you look at who were the decision makers, they were men, basically. And they said this is how it has to be, and women replicated. Poor teachers, dance teachers, replicated it. It was known to be an art form that should evoke Sringara or love in the mind of the audience through lasya, which is grace. Now, what is the meaning of lasya? If you think it is this, then you're wrong. Lasya has very different connotations, and it was supposed to be a feminine art form. And now one finds two difficult or two major problems here. One is the fact that the woman dancer has to only do work that can evoke Sringara through lasya. And number two is only the woman is capable of doing so. That means another gender is not capable of doing that, or another gender is not capable of relating to the fact that the woman, relating to surrender or love for the man or the supreme or the partner, whatever. So these were the problems. There were people like Kavasri Kavalam Narayana Panikar who came into the scene, and he intervened very beautifully. He primitivized the art form by bringing in organic rhythms. And then because we were all in a struggle to make this classical, right? And classical itself is a very difficult term. And he brought in certain beautiful themes of powerful women like Draupadi and Gandhari. And they were all enacted by some wonderful dancers like Bharti Shivaji and Dr. Kanakarale. He wrote for me Kannagi from the Chilapati Karam. And when I first performed Kannagi, I remember people said, this does not evoke Sringara, there is Raudra, and it does not adhere to Mohiniyattam. So what is Mohiniyattam? Is Mohiniyattam just doing a Swati Tirunal composition? Or is it doing a similar composition of love and longing? Or is Mohiniyattam a woman's dance form doing Sringara? Or is Mohiniyattam just the medium or the technique that is there in Mohiniyattam? For me, I chose the last. As much as I would do a Swati Tirunal composition of love and longing, I would still choose the medium above all this. Because I think the body kinesics is very, very special. And also, it also comes with a lot of Keralite elements of percussion, which gives you such great possibilities in the art form. So I started working on my form, and I didn't, just as I was, people perhaps treated me like an outcast because I didn't adhere to norms. I think it was a very liberating experience because I didn't need validation at all. I started working on themes in 20 years before. I started working on themes like, the conversation between Gopika and Krishna, where she says, I can't concentrate on my child, and I'm not interested in my husband. My heart is drawn to you. And Krishna says, well, those are important because if you have to find me attractive, you need to go through this. And you find me super attractive only because you have these commitments. And that is something I ordain. So this is very multidimensional. People sometimes called it, or read it like an extramarital relationship, or some people saw it for its philosophical leanings. For me, it is these varied possibilities that the art form could give. For example, Gopika seeing Krishna's or Lord Vishnu's cosmic form. It was very different from the cosmic form that he showed Arjuna. It was very specific to this particular person. And we all have our specific, needs and requirements. I remember doing a piece, even while I was doing Alashara Paritapam Swati Tirunal, I spoke of the heroine questioning even the concept of Advaita, where she says, if God resides in everybody, then, why should I be drawn to one person? Like things as practical as that, where you see her suddenly move into Samkhya. So for me to get to live a varied to live in and out of people's experience, to live in and out of various philosophies or darshanas, I think made me a very, very different person. I chose to do works on wisdom through Avalokiteshvara of Buddha, through Sarpatattvam. While Avalokiteshvara went to the monasteries, Sarpatattvam went to the Oscars. And then on Uchila, where I questioned knowledge itself, whether knowledge itself is true or ever evolving. And come COVID, this took me to a very different space, where we were all thrown into social isolation. We didn't know what was happening. And that is when I thought about Ahalya. And we've all read the story of her turning into a stone. But for me, it was, perhaps she was thrown into isolation. She became stone-like. And I saw her as someone who had received moksha even before Rama came. Because in Valmiki's Ahalya, you find Rama saying that the ashrama in which she resides already has a glow. It's just that it's abandoned. And how did that glow come from? Because she had already found her enlightenment through a very, very difficult process. So this makes us even understand how, authors or people who interpret epics, the socio-cultural context in which morality itself is built. So Valmiki didn't write it the same way, or Eritachan didn't write it the same way as Valmiki. He built it around the socio-cultural context that existed at that point of time. From Ahalya was the exact physical space. From a psychological space is the physical space of the stage. And COVID, again, didn't give us the space, right? Many of the artists like me, we went out of work. And I thought I must do a work which is very specific to temple. I've done work on beaches, perhaps in malls. But I think temple, mainly because it's a tantric installation and there are a lot more challenges. So I thought of doing a work called Stri Preksha. And I wanted to do it in front of the Sanctum Sanctorum. Everything was consented. And then finally they said, you can't do it there, a lot of problems. And they said, do it anywhere else. So rather than fighting, I just looked at what the opportunities are before me. And then I created a work then and there with musicians, most of them that I had seen them that morning, and without rehearsal. I made use of the architecture of the temple. And I think for the first time, I knew that a change of space and a change of your mindset would create wonders. I would like to show you a teaser of Stri Preksha. Can you show the first teaser, please? That's an impromptu work, huh? You'll find it on YouTube. And this is a work that I co-created with the temple. Every challenge, I took it up as an opportunity. I didn't want to contradict, but I wanted to conform. And there, so many other possibilities opened. So I think as a dancer, or as a woman doing Mohiniyattam, what does empowerment mean? When you say a woman is just empowered, or you're empowering a woman, are you saying that the males are already empowered? No way. For me, empowerment is about making yourself powerful so that you can empower others around you to relate more to humanity and to relate to life better. And that is what empowerment is all about. So even while I do characters within my work, I empower male characters and female characters in my work. I empower my co-artists. I empower my students. I empower my audience. Now, how do I do that? I think Corona was a changing phase, and I worked in the Indian Institute of Space Science and Technology on a work where I integrated a very old gestural language which is used in Kerala, which is seen in our art forms, and I put it up in a functional space like, the astronomical sign language, creating a cryptic language. And that and using it for human-computer interaction. That was, I think, where you detach the aesthetics, but you bring the functional aspect of it in terms of spatio-temporal learning and in terms of your audience preference. Now, going beyond that, how do you empower your audience? And that was where I stepped into the idea of the crossover, where I thought of bringing my art to the deaf. And I realized that just learning their sign language, it dissolved a lot of, it brought all boundaries down, it brought all walls down. And the fact that they were no longer disabled, just learning their sign language made them abled. And I created, just as we talk about the third space of Homi Baba and other people, I created a third language which blended both the aesthetic and the functional. And you will see that in the teaser here, the crossover. And when I performed it in front of the deaf, I think they all, they completely understood. They can't hear lyrics, but they completely understood what I was trying to tell them. And for me, that should be the greatest award, and I think that should be the biggest feather in my cap. The work was screened in Mumbai International Film Festival and International Film Festival of India, Goa, and it also was significant in creating an accessibility and inclusive segment for the first time in the festival. So what change you make within your own domain, basically it goes across and creates ripples in society. And I'm so glad that this has taught me a lot of things, that the fact that how do you make change? You have to first change from within. And when you do that, always creativity, sky is the limit for creativity. And perhaps, when you bring audience or community into the fore, you also have to look at something called feasibility and acceptability. So somewhere between these two, you will always find a point where, both creativity and, feasibility or accessibility find that small, soft point of harmony. Similarly, when contradictions and conformance, right? When you conform amidst contradictions, there will be a soft point where both of them will come together. And it is the ability of an artist to be open or to be progressive enough to understand that there are spaces. And slowly you will understand that there are no more contradictions and you don't really need to conform. And the fact that whatever you create will be accepted, and whatever is accepted, you will be able to create without much problems. Thank you so much.
I think the floor is now open for questions. Please go ahead and.
So 15 minutes over, or? Good, so I haven't delayed. Or maybe I have.
Thanks for the wonderful presentation. I just had a question. How do you see AI mimicking this or creating some such similar things, right? You are kind of front-ending this whole thing and creating something, and they say AI can also become creative, but what you create may never exist. And so how do you see AI catching up to what you're doing?
AI will eventually, even when I'm gone, I'm sure AI will be able to, make work through my own body and through my own images. But then there is something called spirit or soul that I hope AI will never be able to replicate. It's like it's this it's like you have a mother, and what is it's not just being somebody, it's not being adopted, but it is also having that connection. And I'm sure AI will never be able to get that. The spirit is much more stronger than technology. But having said that, I think for training, it would be good. When you look at abstract movements, the physicality to create precision, all that AI should be able to deliver. And I think learning will be much more easier.
Hello. Hello, I'm Dr. Sudha. I'm not in this subject. I'm an architect, planner, and disaster sociologist. I just have to say that what you spoke and presented was amazing. For some reason, I didn't think in classical dance, the dancer had such freedom. And for the fact that you've paved the way and you made a difference, that you were nationally and by the state you were recognized, and I can see why. I could listen to you the whole day.
Unfortunately, I had to speak about my own work because I wouldn't like doing that. But since I'm an action researcher, and it is through my own work that I try, and people call me revolutionary and trailblazer. So I think I better speak about my own work.
No, for some reason, I didn't think a dancer could be that, and that's my own ignorance because I can't. I can't dance
like
at all.
Engendering the dancer to be a woman.
Very well done. Thank you. Congratulations.
That's another sort of engendering, yeah. Like I said, when I brought art to, science, a lot of them were very, very apprehensive as to what humanities. Humanities itself seems to have a feminine gender for some reason when in terms vis-a-vis science. So you find this everywhere, right? And I always think that it's just a matter of academics that that differentiates all this. But once you go deeper into any subject, even if it is science, you will know the art of science. And if it's art, you'll know the science of art. Thank you so much, ma'am. Yeah.
Thank you for your talk. Ma'am, I wanted to ask about when you talk about non-conformity and breaking the traditions.
I talked about conformity.
I mean, in terms of, if I take the example of Raudrarasam in Kannagi, in Chilapatikaram, for instance. So when you were facing this sort of, the traditionalists conforming on talking about how there are walls and certain regulations to bound to when it comes to classical forms. So how did you empower or motivate yourself towards changing those attitudes around?
It's just about doing. You don't need to, I don't think you need to really argue or you need to be verbose about it. What you need is to finally, your art is there and you prove through your art. First is you have to prove yourself, and there are so many things that are to be done, right? When people say, how did you revolutionize Mohiniyattam? I didn't. It was not purposeful. It was just that it happened. You keep working in your art. Bharata in Natya Shastra himself says that after some time you've adhered to all rules, and then if you keep doing it, you will slowly see yourself moving out of it and creating your own. And that is accepted in our Shastras too. Like in the chapter where he talks about gestures, he gives you these gestures and then he says, but during in that time, space and practicality, if you can tweak it, nothing like it. But for that, you have to go through the pratibha. He uses the word pratibha.
Just a follow-up. So how do you see technology accelerating the scale in which you can train others, right? I mean, you know some skills, and I think you said you want to empower by passing it over to the people around you, the audience.
Yeah, for me, the simple thing is, for example, my easiest go is video documentation. At a time when if I had not documented my work, I've just documented a glimpse of maybe 4 or 5 of my main works are online on my YouTube channel. if I hadn't done that, I would still be known only among the dance or the Mohiniyattam fraternity, who would still say what she does is not Mohiniyattam, right? It was because of that technology, or it was because of the social media, that today, they call me a trailblazer. And I attributed it all to, social media. And that is how I think, and also the fact that tomorrow I'm also able to, for example, Stree Preksha, I actually got my work to the community there. And if you look at the term Stree Preksha, you will see in Kautilya's Arthashastra where women were fined if they were to go see something called Stree Preksha. Stree Preksha was an art form done by women in a solo dramatic form. And I actually wanted to change that. Because if you go online, you will find a few definitions of Stree Preksha, but the performative aspect was this. And I wanted to change that. And today, if you type Stree Preksha, you will find mine. And then you will find, and in mine, you will find a lot of people sitting there who were not invited, but then they just came with their masks on to see. So they don't get fined anymore. So you use technology in a Sarpatattvam. I used fine art, I used philosophy, and I used dance to explain something very, very intense called the serpent wisdom. And this will keep happening. So tomorrow I'm going to bring other artists into the fore when I go into the temple terrain. I will probably bring the LGBTQ community. And there will be people around it. But the moment I document it, then I'm letting others know, right? And talking about, in my own stream, for example, Hastas, me teaching somebody online, and if you have a software that can actually build algorithms that tell you that, this is how, that can read it and perhaps recognize the gesture and tell you that this is how precise it is going to be. Tomorrow, I would probably think that if you type a poetry into, I would probably envision you type a poetry into, and into the feed, and you want the appropriate gestural language from one particular ancient scripture to come back to you in movement. That will be done. Now, if you want to integrate that gesture with the sign language of the depth, that will be done. So this is what I envision, and I think that way there'll be a lot of learning to be done. But again, art is about aesthetics. Craft may perhaps be replicated there, but art you can't replicate.
Thank you, ma'am. Two wonderful sessions. I think I see a group of audience who cannot contain their questions because the area is so much interesting and mesmerizing. And thank you, ma'am.
The area is also underestimated most of the time.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Yes.